Chapter 1. The Body That Wasn't Mine. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I noticed was the cold. Not the icy sting of snow or the chill of wind, but the deeper, hungrier cold that creeps in when a body hasn't eaten properly in days. The second thing I noticed was that this body wasn't mine. Daji, wake up. You can't sleep here, you'll freeze. A small hand shook my shoulder, and I turned slowly to see a thin, dirt-smudged child staring at me with big, panicked eyes. His face was pinched with worry, lips chapped from the wind. Behind him, another boy stood silently, his expression blank, but his eyes, sharp, black and unblinking, were watching me like a hawk. Yuchun and Lin Wuyue, the hero and the villain of the novel I just transmigrated into. And I, apparently, was Lin Yan, cannon fodder elder brother figure, meant to die early in a beast attack to protect these two. In the original story, I died trying to shield them from a demonic beast during a rogue spirit raid. My death was the turning point. Yuchun, devastated but determined, vowed to honor my memory by pursuing righteousness. He joined the most prestigious sect, rising quickly through the ranks, chasing strength and recognition, not for himself, but to make my sacrifice worth something. He became the beloved hero of the realm, a shining example of what cultivators could be. Lin Wuyue was a different story. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He buried me with his own hands and never spoke my name again. The loss hardened him into something unrecognizable. His cultivation path twisted, fed by grief and fury. He delved into forbidden techniques, slaughtered corrupt sects, and carved a bloody trail toward his own truth. That a world which let someone like me die was a world not worth saving. In the end, the two boys I was supposed to protect stood on opposite sides of a battlefield. Yuchun defending the righteous alliance, Lin Wuyue tearing it apart. The hero fell, the villain reigned, and everything I died to preserve crumbled. That was the story. But now that I was here, I had no intention of letting it play out. I tried to sit up. My limbs ached. Everything felt heavier than it should have. My stomach growled so loud it startled Yuchun. You're really awake now? You hit your head when you fell. We thought maybe, Yuchun said. I'm awake. I'm all right, I said. You were out all day. You didn't eat anything, Lin Wuyue said. His voice was quiet, flat, with an edge that didn't belong to a child his age. I'm sorry for worrying you too. I struggled to my feet. My knees buckled and Yuchun caught me, even though his arms were like twigs. That alone nearly brought tears to my eyes. I gently placed a hand on his head. Go back inside. I'll make something hot. Inside our so-called shelter, the air was smoky and damp. The shack leaned like it wanted to fall, half of its roof torn away in some long-forgotten disaster. I knelt near the tiny pit we used as a stove and coaxed the embers into flame. We had 2 small potatoes and some dried roots. I added snow to a pot and dropped everything in. Yuchun sat beside me, legs crossed, staring at the bubbling water. Daji, he said, voice small. Do you think we'll get picked by a sect someday? My heart ached. He was barely 5 or 6, too young to already carry that kind of desperation. I glanced at Lin Wuyue, who sat by the door, sharpening a stick into a spear. He hadn't said a word since we came in. Yeah, you both will, I said softly. Yuchun's eyes lit up. Really? Even Wuyue? Especially Wuyue, I said. Lin Wuyue looked up at me then. His expression was unreadable. And you? What about you? He asked. I smiled. I'm just here to make sure you two don't starve or get eaten by monsters. Yuchun giggled. Lin Wuyue didn't. I didn't sleep that night. The boys curled up on either side of me, tiny bodies warm against the cold. I stared up through the holes in the roof at a sky dotted with weak stars. I was going to die in this story. I knew the arc. I was supposed to sacrifice myself, and my death would split them. One to light, one to ruin. Not this time. This time I'd live, even if I had to carry the mountain on my back to do it. Chapter 2. Hunger is louder than destiny. Hunger has a voice. It's not loud, not at first. It begins as a whisper in the belly, a hollow echo you can ignore if you distract yourself. But over time, it grows. It growls. It snarls. And then it becomes a scream that drowns out every other thought. That morning, we woke up with that scream echoing in our stomachs. "Dajii," Yuchun murmured, tugging on my sleeve as I tightened the cloth wraps around my broken sandals. "There's no more rice, just the roots we dug up. Wuyue says they might be bitter. Then we soak them in snowmelt. It'll take some of the bite out." Lin Wuyue was already outside, hacking at a frozen branch with a rusted hatchet. He was smaller than me, but every swing was deliberate. Precise. Too precise for someone his age. I stepped outside and took the hatchet from him. "Your arms will fall off," I said. "You're slower than I am," he replied. "I'm bigger. That counts for something." He looked at me with that same cold expression, his eyes always too old for his face, and said, "You shouldn't collapse again." I didn't argue. Instead, I split the wood. My palms blistered halfway through, but I didn't stop until we had enough to last the night. I tried cultivating again that evening, sat cross-legged with what little warmth I had left, focusing on breath, posture, the rhythm of the heavens. I called for chi. It didn't answer. Again and again. Eventually, I coughed from the cold and gave up. My dantian was silent. It was like knocking on a locked door in a house that didn't want me. Yuchun saw me try. He always did. He crept over and placed a hand on my knee. "Daji, can't you cultivate?" The question was innocent, honest, and it hurt more than it should have. "Maybe," I said, managing a smile. He didn't understand, not fully. But he hugged me anyway. Dinner was the same thin soup with bitter roots. I gave the only potato to the boys and pretended I'd eaten earlier. Yuchun was still too soft-hearted to let that pass. "You didn't eat." "I know you didn't. You always give it to us. You'll get sick again. Then I'll be a very well-fed ghost." "Daji." Lin Wuyue suddenly stood. He walked over and dropped his portion into my bowl. "Eat." I blinked at him. "Wuyue, you need it more. You said you'd protect us. You can't if you fall over dead." He interrupted. I looked between their faces. Yuchen's eyes were glossy with tears. Lin Wuyue's were steel. Two tiny boys carrying more weight than they ever should have. That night, Lin Wuyue didn't sleep. I felt his eyes on me the whole night, even in the dark. "Why are you awake?" I asked. "You stopped breathing once," he said. I froze. "What?" "This morning, before you woke up. You stopped breathing for a few seconds." I didn't know what to say to that. The idea of my body failing me, so soon, so easily, twisted something deep in my gut. He reached out, tugging at my sleeve. "Don't die. If you die, I'll kill everyone who let it happen." I stared at him. "That's not something a child should say, Wuyue." "I'm not a child, not anymore," he whispered. I lay awake after that, staring through the cracks in the roof. Yuchun dreamed of light. Lin Wuyue dreamed of blood, and I dreamed of surviving long enough to stop both from becoming what the world wanted them to be. I didn't need chi. I didn't need a sect. I needed strength. Real strength. Because hunger was loud now, but fate was louder. And if I didn't act, it would swallow us whole. Chapter 3: Mountain Forging Scripture. Took me 3 days to find the cave. 3 days of combing through the edges of Mount Kuang, following old markings on broken stones, until I found what remained of a collapsed hermit's hut buried under moss and frost. Inside, half-rotted scrolls lay scattered beneath a stone slab. Most had decayed beyond recognition, but one, just one, had survived the years. "What the heavens do not give, the earth may grant through suffering." The mountain forging scripture. There was no elegant script, no diagrams of meridian pathways, no poetic verses about celestial harmony. Just brutal instructions for training the body beyond what the mind could bear. I copied it onto strips of bark and cloth, committed it to memory. I didn't have the luxury of scroll paper. What I had was desperation, and a promise. I trained at night when the boys were asleep. My body, already worn from labor, screamed in protest. Push-ups with rocks stacked on my back until my arms collapsed. River soaks that turned my lips blue. Barefoot sprints across ice-coated slopes. Everything burned. Everything hurt. Daji, your hands are bleeding again, Yuchun said one morning, eyeing the raw cuts on my knuckles. Ah? Must have scraped them while chopping wood. I lied, wrapping them in a cloth. You're always hurting lately. Maybe we should be the ones taking care of you, he muttered. No, you two are my job, I said. Lin Wuyue didn't comment, but he watched me with narrowed eyes that night. I could tell he knew I was hiding something. He always saw more than he let on. Later, I caught him trailing me into the woods. Why are you following me? I asked without turning around. Why are you hurting yourself? He asked in return. I'm not. I'm getting stronger. You don't have chi. Your core is empty. This won't change that. I turned to face him then. I don't need chi to keep you alive. He stared at me, unmoving. You're going to die if you keep this up. Better me than you. His fists clenched at his sides. That's not a choice you get to make. I didn't respond. What could I say? That I was doomed to die in the original plot? That his future self would rip the world in half over my corpse? Instead, I said the only truth I could afford to share. If I don't get stronger, none of us make it out of this mountain. He didn't argue again. But from that day forward, he started watching my training. Silent. Unblinking. He didn't stop me, but he didn't leave either. Days passed. Then weeks. The body that once failed me slowly turned into something useful. I could lift more, move faster, endure longer. The pain remained, but the weakness faded. Yuchun noticed first. You look taller, he said, squinting up at me. That's just because you're shrinking? I joked, ruffling his hair. He laughed, bright and easy. It was the kind of sound I wanted to protect with my life. Lin Wuyue, however, said nothing. One night, after another grueling session of hauling logs up the frozen slope, I returned to find both boys sitting by the fire, their faces drawn. You're back late, Yuchun said, trying to hide his worry. Yeah, I said, dusting off snow. Fire's warm, though. Wuyue said you'll break one day, that you're pushing too hard. I glanced at Lin Wuyue. He didn't deny it. I might. But if I don't do this, who else will? I admitted. There was a silence. Then Yuchun stood and walked over, hugging me tightly. Then we'll get strong too, strong enough to help you. So you don't have to do it all alone. He whispered. Lin Wuyue said nothing, but he got up and stood beside me. Not touching, just there. Steady. Unshaking. A mountain beside mine. And in that moment, I realized something important. I wasn't just training to protect them. I was training to stand with them. Chapter 4, First Blood, First Kill. The sky that day was the color of bruises, sickly purple bleeding into gray. Snow clung to the edges of the hut like claws, and the wind had teeth. Yuchun was sweeping the threshold with a pine branch. Lin Wuyue was sharpening a wooden spear in the corner. I had just returned from gathering firewood. The air felt wrong. Inside, I said without raising my voice. But now, they moved. Quickly. I barely had time to throw the firewood aside before the beast came crashing through the trees. It was huge, black-furred, eyes white with chi rot, tusks stained red. A mutated boar, twice the size of a horse, foam spilling from its jaws. It shouldn't have come this close to the hut. Something had driven it. Yuchun screamed. Lin Wuyue didn't. He moved in front of Yuchun like instinct. Weapon ready. Feet planted. I didn't think. Couldn't. I moved. Grabbed a burning branch from the fire pit. Rammed it into the beast's flank. It screamed and reared, knocking me back into the snow. Pain exploded through my ribs. My vision doubled. Couldn't breathe. Daji! The boys were screaming. I couldn't see them. I rolled, barely missing the beast's charge. My hand closed around a splintered stick, the one Wuyue had been sharpening. I didn't hesitate. I roared and jammed the stick into the boar's eye. It squealed, shrieking, but didn't stop, so I tackled it into the fire pit. Flames and fur and pain. I was burning. I was freezing. I was bleeding. Then the world was still. The beast was dead. I lay there panting, smoke curling off my sleeve. Daji, you're bleeding. Yuchun's voice cracked with panic. He knelt beside me, hands fluttering uselessly. I'm fine, I lied, spitting blood to the side. Check on Wuyue. I'm not hurt, Wuyue said. He was beside me now too, his small hands pressing down on my shoulder to stop the bleeding. You're not allowed to die. It wasn't fear in his voice. It was command. A cold, determined whisper of ownership. You're not allowed to die. Ever. I blinked up at him, not planning on it. He didn't look convinced. That night, Yuchun cried himself to sleep against my side. Lin Wuyue didn't sleep. He sat awake by the fire, carving another spear. Thank you, I said finally. He didn't look up. You fought like a fool. Worked, didn't it? Barely. You broke your ribs. You noticed. He looked at me then. You don't get to leave us, even if you think you're just here to protect us. There was something hard in his voice. Possessive. Unyielding. I met his eyes. I'm not planning to go anywhere. He nodded once. Then, quietly, I'll kill anything that tries to take you. A chill ran through me, deeper than the cold outside. In the morning, I could barely move. Every breath hurt. But when I looked at the boys, one smiling through tears, the other watching me like a hawk, I knew it had been worth it. For the first time since arriving in this world, I wasn't just reacting to survival. I had acted, I had killed, and I had lived. This world wanted me dead, but I wasn't going anywhere. Chapter 5, Entry into the Sect World. The moment Yuchun touched the corrupted stream, it turned to light. It wasn't dramatic. No thunderclaps or heavenly choirs. Just a quiet shimmer, like moonlight skimming across the surface, and the sickly green haze vanished. The dead grass around the banks turned green again. The rot in the air cleared. Even the birds returned. I stared at the water, at Yuchun, blinking innocently, holding a clay jar of it like it might bite him. Did I break something? He asked. No, you might have just fixed something, I said. A week later, the Qinghe sect sent 3 envoys. They arrived on cloud-treading talismans, robes crisp and embroidered, their expressions carefully unreadable. I made sure the boys stayed hidden while I met them outside the hut. You live here? This is where the purification happened. One of them asked. I nodded. My younger brother found the stream. He's the one with the light affinity? Yeah. Bring him out. I don't think so. The tallest envoy arched a brow. You misunderstand. The Qinghe sect does not make requests. We are here to bring a prodigy to his rightful place. I didn't say no. I meant he's not coming alone. I replied. They exchanged glances. One of them, probably the nicer one, spoke next. And who are you to him? His brother. His guardian. Are you a cultivator? No. Then you can't enter Qinghe. Then he's not going. A pause. The air between us turned sharp. They weren't used to being denied. I don't think you understand the opportunity your brother is being given. Light affinity is rare. He could become a celestial-grade cultivator. An inner disciple in under a year. You deny him that because of pride? The envoy said. No, I deny him that because he's a 6-year-old who still sleeps with one hand curled around my shirt. If you want to take him, you take me, I said. Behind me, the hut door creaked. Daji, what's going on? Yuchun poked his head out, clutching Wuyue's sleeve. One of the envoys stepped forward, eyes brightening. You must be Yuchun. You shrank back. I turned and crouched to meet his eyes. Do you want to go? I asked. He looked at me, eyes wide. Is it really a sect? Like the ones in stories? It is. He bit his lip. Do they have books? About qi? About flying? More than you could ever read. He looked down, then at the envoys, then back at me. Will you come too? I hesitated. They say I can't. Then I don't want to go. His voice didn't shake. Behind him, Wuyue was silent, his gaze locked on me, like he was already calculating how many people he'd have to kill if they took you by force. I stood and turned to the envoys. You heard him. The shortest envoy, arrogant, probably a third-generation disciple with too many backers and not enough spine, stepped forward. This is absurd. You can't seriously think. I'm coming, Wu Yue said. We all looked at him. I'm going to the sect too, where Daji goes I go, he repeated. You don't have an affinity, the envoy scoffed. I don't need one. There was something in his voice that made the other two envoys flinch. Eventually, the tall one sighed. Fine. We can put in a special application. Sect law allows for non-cultivator attendance under rare circumstances. But you will not be treated as a disciple. I'm not asking to be. Just let us stay together, I said. The trip to Qinghe took 5 days by talisman. We flew low, too low for my comfort, but the boys were in awe. Daji, are those spirit deer? Yuchun pointed as we soared over a valley. They are, I said, one hand on his back in case he leaned too far over the edge. Don't fall out. He laughed. Wu Yue didn't. He sat close to me, eyes scanning the horizon. You okay? I asked. I don't like how open the sky is, too many places to get hit, he said. I didn't say it, but I agreed. Qinghe wasn't what I expected. The outer sect was a city carved into a mountain, terraces spiraling up into the clouds. Waterfalls fed crystalline pools, and glowing talismans hovered over gates the size of temples. Cultivators in pale blue robes moved like ghosts, quiet, graceful. Above it all, the second we arrived, Yuchun was whisked away by handlers. Not forcibly, but with such smooth efficiency it made my stomach twist. He'll be evaluated. If his results hold, he'll be assigned to Master Yueying. One of the envoys said. And us? I asked. The envoy glanced at me, clearly annoyed I hadn't vanished yet. There are work placements for non-disciples. Outer ring. Laborers' quarters. He looked at Wu Yue. And the other boy? He's with me. The envoy didn't argue. He just looked like he wanted to. The laborers' quarters were a step above our shack, but not by much. We were given one room, one bed, and a shared latrine down the path. I took guard shifts at night in exchange for food tokens. Wu Yue helped in the kitchens, though I think he scared the other kids. We saw Yuchun once a week. He wore the novice robes now, soft linen, pale blue sash. He looked brighter, stronger, already different. Daji, look what I learned. He ran into me the second we met. He lit his hand with a small flame. Qi raw and untamed. I didn't flinch, but Wu Yue tensed beside me. That's amazing, proud of you, I said, ruffling Yu's hair. You'll catch up soon, right? They'll let you be a disciple too, right? He asked. I smiled. We'll see. That night, Wu Yue sat beside me in silence, watching the moon. He's changing, he said. He's growing. Will he still need us? The question wasn't small. Carried too much weight for a boy his size. He will, I said. Even if he doesn't, I still need you, that won't change. He said quietly. I looked over at him. He didn't cry. He didn't smile. He just said it like a fact. And I knew in that moment. No matter how wide the sect halls became, no matter how high Yuchun climbed, there was a tether in Wu Yue that would never move. And it was tied to me. Chapter 6. Hero rises, villain watches. Yuchun soared. Not just metaphorically. He literally soared across the sparring arena during his first public demonstration. Barely 8 years old, robes fluttering like banners, a training sword of pure light in his hand. He landed with a grace that should have belonged to someone twice his age. The dummy he'd struck split clean down the middle, charred at the cut. The courtyard erupted in cheers. Even a few inner disciples looked impressed. I clapped slowly from the outer edge, arms crossed. Wu Yue stood beside me, silent as always, a sharpening stone in his hand even though he hadn't drawn his blade once today. Yuchun beamed when he saw us and ran over, his cheeks flushed, breath fast with excitement. Daji, did you see? I used the shimmer step just like Elder Guan showed me. Then I channeled my light into the blade and, you looked like you were born with it, I said, smiling. You laughed, shy but proud. They said I might be selected for the inner ring soon. You deserve it. He paused. You'll still come with me, right? If they move me. I reached out and squeezed his shoulder. You're not leaving us behind, Yuchun. Don't worry about that. He nodded, but his smile faltered just a little. Wu Yue was staring at the stone in his hand. He didn't say a word the whole walk back to our quarters. A week later, Yuchun didn't return from the training halls until after midnight. He staggered in, soaked from the rain, a talisman stuck to his sleeve and eyes red from tears. Daji, I broke the formation again, he choked. I wrapped a blanket around him, guiding him to sit by the brazier. Wu Yue sat in the corner, watching, unmoving. What happened? They wanted me to purify a soul fragment, you hiccuped. But it screamed. It had a face. I tried to stop, but Master Yuang said I had to finish. Said mercy weakens the light. I wiped his face gently. You're not weak. You have something stronger than any light, your heart. They said I'm soft, that I'll fail if I keep crying. I glanced at Wu Yue. They're wrong, I said. Your light comes from protecting others, not destroying them. Yuchun nodded, pressing his face into my chest. Wu Yue got up and walked out into the rain. He didn't come back until morning. The higher you rose, the further away he seemed to drift. He was constantly called away, trainings, elder meetings, lessons in sect law and celestial ethics. He'd return with new robes, new injuries, and that too-wide smile that tried to hide how tired he really was. I'm fine, he always said. I have to work harder if I want to keep up. One night, after he fell asleep on the floor mid-conversation, Wu Yue and I sat outside under the lantern light. He's burning out, I muttered. Wu Yue didn't respond immediately. He was carving something into the wood with a needle. He's trying to outrun us, he said at last. No, he's trying to carry us. He doesn't need to. That's your job. I looked over at him. You think I should have stopped him? I think you shouldn't have let him think he had to save us to earn your love. The words hit harder than I expected. I never. You didn't say it, Wu Yue interrupted, still carving. But he sees how you look at him, like he's your hope, your light. You praise his strength, but you never asked if he wanted to be strong. I didn't argue, couldn't, because he was right. A month passed. Then too, Yuchun became an inner disciple. His courtyard was moved to the mid-tier ring, marble floors, private training grounds, his own spirit pool. His name was whispered by sect girls and envied by older disciples. He still came back, every week, like clockwork, with sweets, books, and scrolls he thought Wu Yue and I would like. I asked the steward to let you use the outer practice fields, he told me one day. You're stronger than most of the early-tier cultivators now, even without chi. They should recognize it. Doesn't matter. I'm not here for recognition, I said. You should be. You train harder than all of them. If they saw you, I said gently, I'm not interested in catching their attention. I'm interested in keeping you safe. He frowned. But you could be so much more. I didn't respond, because I didn't want to say the real truth out loud. I'm already more than I was ever meant to be. That night, I found Wu Yue on the rooftop. He was watching the sky, hands stained with ink from an unfinished talisman scroll. You're quiet lately, I said. I've been watching. Watching what? He turned to face me. Him. You. Everything. I sat beside him, careful not to touch. Do you resent him? No. But I resent what this place is doing to him. I nodded. Me too. He glanced sideways. I don't want to join the trials. I noticed. They asked me. Said I showed promise. But I said no. Why? He stared out at the horizon. Because there's nothing they can teach me that matters more than staying beside you. I exhaled. Wu Yue. I'm not climbing any ladder. I'm not chasing the stars. I'm staying where you are. No matter where that leads. Wu Yue never stepped foot in a sect hall again. He trained in the forest. He fought bandits. He read forbidden scrolls he found buried in old archives. I tried to stop him. I failed. Every time I returned from a mission, I found him stronger. quieter, sharper. There was no celebration around his growth. No cheers. No robes. But one night, a disciple from the inner sect tried to insult me in the market square, called me the stray dog Yuchun feeds. The next morning, that disciple was found unconscious in the woods. Every bone in his dominant arm shattered. No one could prove anything. But when I looked at Wuyue later that day, his knuckles were split and raw. And he didn't bother hiding the smile. Chapter 7, The Sword Path and the Shadow. I earned my first real blade on a corpse-strewn road. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't bestowed. It was dropped by a caravan guard who'd bled out faster than his comrades. Bandits had ambushed us during a routine escort job. A Tier 2 rogue cultivator among them. Chi flaring, armor stolen from some fallen sect. I had no talismans, no spells, just a rusted dagger and my fists. When the fight started, I didn't think. I moved, broke the rogue's knee with a downswing log, disarmed him using a thorny vine and a rock. When he tried to gut me with a soul-forged saber, I knocked it from his hand and crushed his windpipe with the heel of my palm. The blade was mine after that. People started talking. That's the non-cultivator who downed at Tier 2. No core, no chi. And he lived? They say he trains with boulders on his back. Sleeps standing up. Eats raw beast meat to build resistance. Most of it wasn't true. Some of it was. Back at Qinghe, my name wasn't on any disciple roster. I wasn't listed in any sect roles. I had no master, no house emblem, no sect robe. But work kept finding me. Delivery runs. Guard duties. Escorting junior disciples through dangerous trails because the seniors didn't want to babysit. I didn't care. Work was work. Each job made me stronger. Sharper. The sword I'd stolen from death became an extension of my body. And Wuyue never left my side. You shouldn't come with me on these, I told him one night, cleaning blood off the blade. Wuyue sat beside the fire, feeding a small fox carcass into the flames. You say that every time, because it's true. You're not on the sect's books. If something happens to you, he cut in. Who's going to stop me from burning the mountain down? I stopped scrubbing. Wuyue. He didn't look at me. They let you risk your life because you don't have a name here. But I haven't forgotten it. I don't care if they call you swordless. I've already decided. I tried to say something light, something to shift the weight in his voice. But there was nothing light left between us. Not anymore. He handed me a cloth. Your grip is wrong when you swing left. You expose your ribs. I took it in silence. That winter, rumors spread. Someone had broken a demon-bound cultivator's shield with a single strike. Someone had walked through a poison field and scathed. Someone had taken a wound to the stomach and stitched it shut with thread from a spirit beast's tail, and kept fighting. They were all talking about me. They just didn't know it yet. You could challenge the outer disciples, Yuchun said one evening over hot rice buns. Win a spot in the next trial. You'd pass. Easily. I don't want to be a disciple, I said. But you're stronger than most of them. That's not the point. Yuchun looked frustrated. Then what is the point? Across the table, Wuyue answered. The point is survival, not glory. You flinched. Is that all this is to you too? Just surviving? No, I said. It's about keeping the people I care about alive. He looked between us. You think I don't care? I think, Wuyue said evenly, you stopped needing us to survive, and now you don't know where we fit. Yuchun went quiet. When he left that night, he didn't look back. The next month, I accepted a solo mission into the Wraithwood, a corrupted forest that devoured chi users and left their bodies hollow. They didn't want to send me at first. You don't have a core, the mission steward said, scanning my report. The forest drains energy. You won't be able to defend yourself. Exactly, I said. It won't drain what I don't have. He blinked. I came back 3 days later with the corpse of a corrupted wolf on my back and a torn satchel of stolen talismans. The steward stared at me. Maybe the sect should start using you as a punishment post, he muttered. Might scare the brats straight. I didn't respond, Behind me, Wu Yue carried the second corpse. Silent, eyes forward. Blood on his cheek like war paint. He had started following me on every mission. I stopped trying to stop him. He didn't ask permission. He didn't need it. One evening, I found Wu Yue in the old quarry behind the servant quarters. He was bleeding from his palms, both arms wrapped in chains. He was dragging a stone block twice, his weight up a slope slick with moss and bone dust. "What are you doing?" I asked. He didn't stop. "Training. This isn't training. This is punishment." He finally dropped the stone. The chains clattered to the ground. He looked at me, eyes wild with something I didn't recognize. "Anger? Hunger? You're stronger than anyone here," he said. "And it still isn't enough. That rogue from last month nearly gutted you. And I couldn't stop it. You saved my life. I should have ended his first." His voice cracked, not with tears, but with something sharp and breaking. "I can't protect you like this. You already do. Not enough." He took a step forward. "Let me train the way I need to. Let me follow the path that'll let me stay at your side." I knew what he meant. I'd seen the scrolls hidden under his bed. Forbidden techniques, blood-seal diagrams, soul lock etchings. They were dangerous, corrupted, illegal, but they worked. And if I said no, I knew he'd do it anyway. So I said the only thing I could. "If you fall too far, I'll be the one to pull you back." He looked at me, and for a moment, just a moment, his expression cracked. "You better." From then on, we trained in silence. He grew darker. I grew harder. We didn't speak of discipleship or sect prestige anymore. Those things didn't matter. What mattered was the sword I carried, and the shadow that walked behind me. Because one day the world would notice him, the shadow who never blinked. And when they did, they'd realize too late what he'd become. Not a disciple, not a follower, not even a cultivator, but a blade, forged by survival, sharpened by obsession, and held by only one hand, mine. Chapter 8. Confession of Ice. The mission was supposed to be routine. Clear out a corrupted cave in the northern ridge. Retrieve a sealed scroll from the vault inside. Escort 2 junior disciples. Return before the second moonrise. Simple. Until the ice spirits woke up. Until the ridge cracked beneath our feet and swallowed the path whole. Until one of the juniors was shredded by frost shards mid-incantation, and the other froze to death with his eyes still open. I stumbled into the cave, bleeding and half-frozen, dragging a snapped sword behind me. The wind outside howled like it was morning. My fingers were blue. My ribs were cracked. My mind kept stuttering on one detail. I hadn't seen Wu Yue fall. He'd been right behind me. He always was. Then there was a burst of light, a flash of screaming frost, and darkness. I collapsed by the mouth of the inner cavern, where the wind died and the air turned still and wrong. And then, footsteps. Not spirit light, not hostile. I looked up. Wu Yue. He stood at the cave entrance, soaked in snowmelt and blood. His robes were shredded, his sleeves dark from shoulder to wrist. His right hand clutched the scroll we came for. His left was holding a severed ice spirit's head by the hair. "You're late," I rasped. He dropped the head with a wet thud and crossed the cave. "You're injured. You think. You shouldn't have gone in without me." "I didn't. You vanished." "No, you vanished. I was still killing things when the ground caved in," he said. He knelt beside me, pulling herbs and crushed salve from his pouch. "I'm fine," I muttered. "You're freezing," he said. I tried to push him off. My hand didn't make it halfway. He layered the salve across the worst cuts, then stripped his cloak and wrapped it around me. He was trembling, not from the cold, from something else. "I almost didn't find you," he said. "But you did." His hands froze. "Don't say it like that. Like it doesn't matter. Like it wasn't." "What? Risky? Suicidal? Like it wasn't everything." His voice broke. Just once. That was worse than shouting. I sat up slowly. My whole body screamed. My core still silent. No chi to warm me. No healing. Just blood and breath and bone. Wu Yue helped me lean back against the wall, then sat across from me. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Why do you keep doing this?" he asked. I exhaled. "Because you two matter more than I do." "No." He looked at me now. "That's not it. That's not enough. You'd survive anything. You'd crawl through fire to get back to us." "Why?" I blinked. "You already answered it." "No," he said. "I want the truth. The one you're afraid to say." I went silent. The cave was quiet except for the crackle of a dying fire talisman. Wuyue stood, pacing now. The kind of pacing that only came from something desperate pressing against the inside of his ribs. "I've watched you carry the world on your back. I've watched you break your body so we could eat. I've watched you bleed for people who wouldn't spit on you if you were on fire." He turned to face me. "But you never let me carry you. Not once." I looked away. "You see me as a child." "I don't." "You do. You still do. Even now. After everything." I forced myself to meet his gaze. "You were a child when I got here. You shouldn't have to carry me. Then let me choose." His voice cracked again. "Let me carry you. Let me stay. Let me be yours." I froze. He took a step forward. "I'm not asking for a title. I'm not asking for a promise. I'm asking for one thing, one truth." He dropped to a crouch in front of me, his eyes blazing in the dim light. "I've loved you since the first time you made soup out of snow and bark. Since the first time you said I'd be picked by a sect, even though I wasn't worth anything. Since the first time you stood in front of us like a wall." He leaned closer. "You are the only one who ever saw me as human." Couldn't breathe. His hand brushed my jaw. "So let me be yours." Then he kissed me. It wasn't clumsy. It wasn't soft. It was cold and raw and desperate. A wound, not a question. A line drawn in blood. He didn't linger. Just long enough for me to feel the weight of it. When he pulled back, he didn't look away. "I won't let you die," he said. "I won't let him have you." My stomach twisted. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do. I don't belong to anyone." "Then give me a reason to belong to you." The silence between us stretched. Outside, the storm began to die. Inside, I tried to speak, but the words didn't come, because I didn't know what I felt, because part of me wanted to lean in again, and part of me was terrified of what that would mean. We didn't speak the rest of the night. He stayed beside me while I slept, eyes open, knife drawn, watching the cave mouth like it owed him blood. In the morning, he helped me to my feet without a word. We burned the scroll. We buried the bodies. We left the cave behind. But I didn't forget the kiss. And I didn't forget what he said. "Let me be yours." Chapter 9, Bound by Blood, Not Fate. The sect was alive with music and firelight. Festival night. Mid-autumn ascension. Disciples floated glowing lanterns down the river. Spirit beasts danced in the sky, summoned by illusion talismans. Red silk streamed from the rooftops. Laughter echoed off marble halls. I stood on the edge of it all, half in shadow, a drink in my hand I hadn't touched. Wuyue was somewhere else, doing what he always did when he didn't want to be seen. Watching from above. Silent. Guarded. Mine whether I wanted him to be or not. And Yuchun was in the center of it. Surrounded. Adored. He stood in a crowd of inner disciples, head tilted back, laughing at something a senior said. His robe shimmered gold under the lanterns, stitched with the Qinghe crest. His hair was tied with silver cord. His blade, custom forged, rested at his hip. And still, his eyes kept finding me, over and over, until he finally slipped away and crossed the square. "Daji." I turned. "Didn't expect to see you tonight. You always say that. I always find you. Habit." He smiled. "I guess we're both creatures of habit then." I didn't answer. He stepped closer. "Can we talk?" I nodded, and we slipped out into the lantern fields behind the outer ring, where the crowd thinned and the world quieted. We walked for a while in silence. Fireflies blinked around our ankles. Someone played a reed flute in the distance. The air smelled like roasted chestnuts and moon wine. You finally spoke. "You've been different since the northern ridge." I didn't reply. I asked Wuyue what happened. He said nothing. He wouldn't. I figured. He stopped walking. I stopped too. He turned to face me, hands trembling slightly. You know, he said softly, when I was a kid, I thought the only thing I ever wanted was to be chosen by a sect. You were. I was. And it wasn't enough. His voice cracked. I thought maybe, if I was strong enough, important enough, you'd look at me the way you look at him. I inhaled slowly. You. I'm not blind, he whispered. I saw the bruise on your jaw after you came back. I saw the way you stopped speaking when he entered the room. I saw everything. He stepped forward. You're my son, Digi. You always have been. You were the first warmth I ever knew. You fed me when you were starving. You gave me your blanket when you were freezing. You carried me when I couldn't walk. He touched my sleeve. Let me carry you now. My breath caught. His fingers brushed mine. And for a moment, just a moment, I almost let him. But then, I remembered the cave, the blood, the kiss that burned colder than fire, and Wuyue who watched me like I was gravity, like letting go would rip the world in half. Pulled away. I'm sorry. Yuchun froze. I looked at him, not as a disciple, not as a hero, but as the boy who used to tug at my sleeve and ask if we'd ever fly. I love you, you, I said quietly, but not the way you want. He didn't speak. His face didn't break. He didn't cry. He just stood there, breathing too hard, eyes too bright. You don't have to say anything, I said. You don't have to forgive me. He looked down, then up, and smiled. It wasn't a real smile, cracked on one side, but he wore it like armor. Then I'll protect you both, he said, even if I'm not the one you hold. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. He turned before I could, disappeared into the crowd. And just like that, I lost the sun. Later that night, I returned to our quarters. Wuyue was on the roof, waiting, always. You saw him? He asked without turning. Yes. Silence. He confessed? He asked. Yes. And I told him the truth. Wuyue didn't respond, just nodded once. A beat passed. Then, was it hard? I sat down beside him. Yes. He looked at me, not sharp, not angry, just there. What now? He asked. I looked at the stars. Now we survive. Now we prepare. Now we wait for the world to realize what we are. I made a choice, I said. He didn't ask what it was. He didn't need to. He just shifted slightly closer. And for once, neither of us said another word. Chapter 10. Lover of the villain, savior of the world. It started with a poisoned blade. Not aimed at me, but it may as well have been. The assassination attempt came during a sect conference. A neutral gathering on sacred ground, where leaders from the 5 great sects met to discuss rogue cultivator threats and rising demonic beast incursions. I was on duty, security detail, nothing more. Dressed in black, armed, silent, an extra shadow among many, until the blade flashed, until I heard the scream, until I turned and saw Yuchun, my son, my brother, my heartbreak, fall to one knee, blood spilling down his chest. Chaos followed. Elders roared. Guards surged forward. Cultivators lit the sky with talismans and blades. And standing above the fallen corpse of the assassin, breathing heavy, blade dripping, was Lin Wuyue, my Wuyue. Except this Wuyue was something else now. He didn't flinch, didn't explain. He hadn't used a spirit blade. He'd crushed the attacker with raw strength and shadow binding. Illegal magic. Forbidden technique. The elders saw, the crowd saw, and the moment stretched long enough to break. He's used demonic arts. He's one of them, someone shouted. He's dangerous. He has no master, no lineage, he's feral. They moved to strike. Wuyue didn't run. He just looked at me, calm, like we'd planned this, like he knew exactly what would come next. I stepped forward. Stop! 20 cultivators turned. Elder Meng, silver-haired, cold-eyed, frowned at me from the dais. You speak out of turn, outsider. I'm not a disciple. I don't need to wait for permission, I said. He used dark magic in front of a celestial council. That alone warrants purging. He used it to save a life. Elder Meng gestured to the blood. A life that might still be lost. He could have provoked the assassin. Or worse, he might be involved. That's a lie. Yuchen's voice rang out. He was still kneeling, robe soaked, but alive. He forced himself to stand, pressing a glowing hand to the wound in his side. Wu Yue saved me. Meng scoffed. A hero siding with a Shadowborn. He's not Shadowborn, Yuchen said, but he walks the path of darkness. Then let him, I said. Loud, clear. The entire sect fell silent. I walked to Wu Yue and stood beside him. He didn't move. He didn't smile. But his hand curled into a fist, barely trembling. If you want his head, you'll have to take mine too, I said. Murmurs rippled. I didn't care. A wind stirred the courtyard. Someone unsheathed a blade. Someone else stopped them. Then, another voice. I stand with them, Yuchen said. He took his place on my other side. A golden glow in one hand and a shattered talisman in the other. If this sect raises a blade against either of them, it raises a blade against me. Elder Meng stared at us like we were ghosts. Then what would you have us do? Let a known dark arts practitioner walk free. He's not walking free, he's with me, I said. You're not a cultivator, Meng snapped. No, I said. I'm something worse. I unsheathed my blade, not with flair, but with certainty. The one I'd taken off a corpse years ago. The one I'd reforged, reshaped, rebuilt with my own hands. I'm a man with nothing left to lose but the people standing beside me. Wu Yue exhaled, just once. And then he said it. I'm not your villain. You never were, I replied. But I'll become one if they try to take you. We weren't arrested. The elders didn't strike. Maybe they feared Yuchen's power. Maybe they feared what Wu Yue could do if they made him cornered again. Or maybe they feared what we were becoming. A balance they couldn't tip without shattering everything. After that, things changed. Wu Yue was officially declared under watch. A risk, a danger. They branded him as a future threat. He didn't care. We moved out of sect, planning to journey through life exploring adventures. We trained in silence. We fought together. We slept in the same bed. Some nights he kissed me like he was drowning. Some nights we didn't speak at all. And Yuchen? He changed after we left. He smiled less, slept less, trained more. But he always held a string to us. Always knowing where we were and what we've done. He never tried to win me back. He just stood near us. Always, like a wall between the world and what we were becoming. We're not a happy story. We're not a righteous one. But we're real. And we're still standing. Me, the sword. Wu Yue, the shadow. Yuchen, the sun. And the world, it didn't end up like the original novel but stayed in peace.